No pictures, please. My office will have a statement later on today, but no pictures.
No, they won't. Your secretary won't do any. She won't get squat done.
My beautiful secretary, Lurleen, she's
You're
still in love with you.
What happened to Alexa? You used to have Alexa. Anyway.
She's sleeping. She's sleeping. All right.
Anyway, guys, if you want to get good Professor McIntyre an assistant, which he desperately needs, please make sure to hit the links below to financially support us. We would really appreciate it. Become a Patreon or become a... Fine, patronize us.
A patron, not a Patreon.
And then you can also PayPal us. We'd also greatly appreciate that. Anyway,
we do appreciate all of your messages and your comments, and we try to steer the topics to what you are asking us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, et cetera, et cetera.
Keep those comments coming, and please keep sharing and liking. So. Right. Getting back to it, you have a long friendship with the late actor Charlton Heston.
Right. Now, not too many Generation Z people your age actually know who he is. Even some millennials don't know who he is. They're just way too young. But it's hard for generations like millennials and your generation to actually understand that we once lived in a world where everybody was a patriotic American. We lived in a world where people had common values, where free speech was protected, where the media was.
All right, what's the next stop on the nostalgia train?
Well, but the next stop on the train is how we handled fame, and how your generations do not handle fame very well, in my humble opinion.
Well, why don't you tell us what we're doing wrong?
I was friends with Charlton Heston for 27 years, and we worked together on several projects. I'm not going to go into that. But I recall one day on this very topic, an actor was about to die, and I happened to be at Chuck's house when the press showed up. And the press showed up for two reasons. They wanted Chuck to give a statement about this actor whose name was Jack Lemmon. And they had worked together, and the last film they did together was about William Shakespeare. As a matter of fact, it was Hamlet. They worked on Hamlet together.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, Jack Lemmon was very sick and was about to die. Now, the press always does this. They show up at your celebrity house. They say they're there for X and Y and Z, something political or something social, and then just as you're ready to leave, the press will say to you, well, Jack Lemmon is on his last legs, literally, and would like to have a statement from you about his death. Now, the guy's not even dead yet, right?
That's ridiculously insensitive. Okay.
Right. No, but that's how the press operates. That's that's how they are. Now, how do you handle that? How do you handle? You're so famous that people are asking you to give an obituary of somebody who's not even dead yet. Think about that. Right. So I remember with Chuck, he played with it. He went right into it. They rolled the tape again. By the way, he was there to talk about the Screen Actors Guild and how Ed Asner had been overthrown by his activities.
Oh, okay. That's
why they were there. And they said, well, by the way, would you give us an obituary for Jack Lemmon, who's about to die? And Chuck said, oh, yeah, sure, fine. Yeah, I'll give you an obituary. And he did. He gave him a nice 3-minute raconteur of his, he said, we didn't agree politically. He's a very liberal guy. I'm a very conservative guy. But, I have great respect for him. He has a great career. He went on and on and on and on. Sounded great. And so the camera crew thanked Mr. Heston, and they put their equipment back in the truck, and they're driving down the driveway, and Chuck just stands there looking at them. And I went over to him, and I said, that was kind of cold and cruel of them to do that to you. He said, yeah. He said, fame cannot help but to have a corrosive effect upon the soul. And I'll never forget that. I'll never forget that.
You know why you'll never forget that? Because you keep saying that.
Well, I keep saying it because I'll never forget it. That's why.
Circular. But, I mean, I've never heard you say it in that context, though. And it's very, because I think superficially, kind of like everyone knows, fighting's not good and the life's not all about money. There's these kind of virtues that we know nobody follows, but we all know. Mm-hmm. In the same way, everyone knows that fame comes with corruption. Everyone still pursues fame. Same thing with
Right.
money and sex and drugs and all
Right.
that stuff.
Well, some people can handle fame very, very well, and other people cannot.
And
And
I don't want to go through the list of all the celebrities that
no,
can't handle fame.
no,
It's
but
disgusting.
let me tell you. Let me tell you what I think. What I think personally is the line of demarcation between those who can handle it and those who cannot handle it.
Oh, do tell.
And I believe that the persons that can handle it have transcendental principles and values. They realize this world is not the material processes of the world is not going to be the measure of your life. The measure and the legacy of your life is going to be the principles and the values that transcend the material world.
I'll push back a little bit. There
Yeah.
are some self-described atheists that are very successful and look like they look like they have their lives more together rather than some people that clearly don't have their life together.
Right.
But I would say that transcendental values are the most effective tool for saving a celebrity from the depths of despair. Like Justin Bieber, perfect example.
Yeah.
If
Well,
you-
I was about to go into this.
Oh, okay.
I was
I
about
stole your thunder.
No. You give a nice preface to the thunder. You were clearing the throat.
It's like the lightning, but the thunder, and then okay.
I don't want to go anecdotal on this and name names, but I've known celebrities in both categories: those who had transcendent principles and values, and did not get involved in sexcapades, and did not give themselves over to alcoholism or drugs. They didn't have to marry 15 people every other week. Charlton Heston was married to Lydia Heston for 64 years. 64 years.
And that was the only wife he had.
Yeah, that was the only one. Because there have been people married 64 years in Hollywood, but not to the same person. I mean, lots of.
They've been married 64 times. They've been married for 64 years. Been married
No,
64 times.
sometimes 128 times. Double 64. It's like the computer. Anyway, so those who cannot handle it, and I'm not going to name names, but all of us know who these people are. They're on the front pages of People magazine and TMZ and all these websites. They have ruined lives. They're depressed. They're suicidal. They're unhappy because they don't have transcendental principles and values. And there's one thing just want to add, and that is, if you forget where you came from, if you forget who you are and you forget where you came from, then when you become famous, the chances are you're going to get lost, sadly lost.
One example I can think of from my hometown, where you're currently living, Santa Barbara, the most famous resident, Katy Perry. She actually, not many people know this, but she used to have a career as a Christian songwriter.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that.
I didn't know that.
She dumped that though at some point in her career and just decided to go into pop, and she obviously became wildly successful.
Yeah.
She's very much rejected all that. That's she's the number one. She has more followers than anyone else on Twitter. So I mean, she had a lot of material success.
Right.
She's very, very wealthy. But
she had transcendental values before she had the career. And that's
at least that's what it appeared like.
Let me give you one more example.
I want to give an example. Shut up.
I want to give. You give your example.
Justin
first.
Bieber. I alluded.
Oh,
to
that clown. Please.
Well. No. I mean, he really started off as just the epitome of annoying young white kid.
A brat.
Yeah, brat. Everyone hated him. I remember. He's now resurging in popularity because he probably would attribute to his face is changing.
Well,
and
good. I'm glad to hear that.
Faith.
I'm glad to hear that. Yeah.
Same. And I have more examples. Go on.
But there's one here that happened recently in Santa Barbara. You probably didn't know about it. Ron Ely, who played Tarzan years and years ago, back in the 50s and the 60s. I knew him and worked with him in the Screen Actors Guild. He was a good friend of Charlton Heston. He supported the overthrow of Ed Asner. He left Hollywood so that he could raise his children. Now, this is very sad. What I'm about to tell you is very sad. He left Hollywood to raise his 3 children, 2 little girls and a son named Cameron. Last week, Cameron stabbed his mother to death in Hope Ranch and tried to blame it on Ron Ely. But Ron Ely is paralytic and can barely speak. So when the police got there, There was a 911 call by Cameron. Cameron called 911 and said, my dad attacked my mom. Okay, so the police rush over there. They find the woman dead, right? They find Ron Ely in a wheelchair babbling. He can't even move, right? And so he could speak enough to say that his son actually stabbed his wife to death. And they searched the property. They found Cameron. Cameron, according to the sheriffs, became a threat to the officers. Several officers took out their guns and shot him dead.
So where's the fame and all that and all this?
Yeah, that's why I'm bringing this example up, because how do you handle that? How do you handle that? Here's a person who obeyed his transcendental instincts and left the material world to raise his children properly. They went to the very best school. The kid was a quarterback at Harvard University football. Okay, yeah, he went to Phillips Exeter prep school. He was a big star, a handsome-looking guy. Had everything that you could possibly imagine, but something went wrong. When we try to transfer principles and values from one generation to another, it ain't easy.
The moral of the story is,
especially if you have a lot of money.
Even with fame, we have to always keep in mind that values really do come before all else.